Hello ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. This is Force with some more Elder Scrolls Online discussion. In today's video, I'll be showing you guys some recent major changes and improvements to the post-tutorial experience as well as the look and feel of combat in the game. Now these changes just went through and I've been given the go-ahead to discuss them, but it's important to keep in mind that the game is still in testing and all of these are subject to change before the release. So with that said, let's jump right in. We're going to start off with the improvements to the post-tutorial experience. So with the recent lift of the NDA and lots of major press outlets and online personalities talking about the game, one of the most pervasive complaints was the starting of the game was really slow and it didn't really feel true to Elder Scrolls tradition in the sense that it held your hand a lot. And that made sense because it was a tutorial, but people wanted to have this big open expansive area that they were free to explore. Well, they have given us that option. Now what's going to happen is after you break out of Cold Harbor and the chains of Molag Bal, you will be dumped into the first major starting city of your alliance. So in the past when you escaped Cold Harbor, you were basically dropped into what was considered Tutorial Island. It was this small enclosed area, and depending on your alliance, it would either be Canarthy's Roost, Stros Mackay, or Bleak Rock. Now, instead of being brought to those small islands, you are brought again to the first major starting city, which will either be Volkal Guard, Daggerfall, or Davin's Watch. The big difference here is now you have the choice to just start exploring. You're not in this enclosed area and it won't feel like a confined space. Now, those places still exist. Canarthy's Roost, Stros Mackay, and Bleak Rock still have their citizens and they're still in need of help. But now you have the option, once you arrive in that first major starting city, to go back and help those places if you want, or you can just venture forth and start your exploration, diving into dungeons, killing NPCs, whatever you feel like doing, sort of in more traditional Elder Scrolls fashion. Now, frankly, I think that this is a pretty fantastic change. Again, it does address the issue and the concern that people had with the starting area not feeling like an Elder Scrolls game and just feeling like a linear sort of MMO experience. This addresses that, and it gives people the freedom of choice, and really that's what Elder Scrolls games have always been about, and it's good to see that they're making those steps here in this MMO. Now, to adjust for this change, the starting area around these first major cities for your alliance have been adjusted for the level ranges 3 to 6. Basically, when you leave Cold Harbor, you're either going to be level 2 to 3, and so now where you're dumped off represents that and is equivalent to it. Now, it's still going to be suggested, and I will suggest that people go back to those islands, Canarthy's Roost, Stros Mackay, and Bleak Rock. I suggest you go there because not only is there experience to be had there, but there's a story to be told, and most importantly, if you're a completionist and you want to get all your skills, there will still be those 3 sky shards that exist in those starting areas. So it's still a good idea to go and help those places, but now you don't have to. And the other really cool thing about this is, again, we were telling people, if you just wait till like around level 10, the game really opens up. Now, it's as soon as you leave Cold Harbor, because around level 10, it was more so around level 7 to 8 is when you got to these places. But yeah, now you'll be arriving pretty much immediately at these places that feel more like Elder Scrolls games because they are more open and they do incentivize exploring, finding a dungeon, getting quests inside of there and just doing whatever. And that's a good thing. I think that's a great change. So that is the adjustment to the post-tutorial experience. Now let's talk about the changes to combat. Beyond the slow start of this game, one of the big, major, prevalent complaints was that the combat felt floaty. It didn't feel very impactful. People always said that they felt like they were just swinging at like phantoms in the air. Well, they have addressed that by adding collision detection for NPCs. Now, this is for friendly and enemy NPCs only, but collision detection will still exist in those aspects of this game. Not in PvP. We'll address why in a second. First, I want to talk about the addition of collision detection. You know, I wasn't sure how I felt about this because so many MMOs don't have collision detection and they're allowing you to walk through enemies and, get behind them and stuff. But after playing around with it, I really, really like it. Now, it makes you have to be a lot more careful, and especially in PvE situations like group dungeons and endgame adventure zones, you're going to have to be a lot more aware of your surroundings, because if you get flanked by a group of enemies, they could just encircle you and you wouldn't be able to move. You would literally be stuck there. I think at that point it'll be interesting to see what like leap movements and teleportation movements allow you to do. They should have let you pass through those creatures, but I don't really know at this point. But I do really like this change. Again, it makes the world around you feel more alive. If there are enemies to your left and right, if you try to move in those directions, you're going to bump up against them and you can't pass through them. So it's very cool. It really adds that feeling of weight. And to go along with this, specifically talking about combat animations and stuff, they've done some updates to the camera shaking for all light and heavy attacks. Basically, they're going to feel a little bit more full of impact, and you'll be seeing a little bit more screen shake. There's a few things that add to weight in combat. Number one is animations, the way enemies and your player responds to different attacks when they are hit with them. The second one is screen shaking. The third one is audio. Those three things combined together really make for a sense of impact and weight behind movements and attacks. So if they can get those things nailed down, it'll be a real big step in the right direction. I think adding collision detection for enemies and friendly NPCs, but remember, non-player characters. So not real players, not friendly players, not enemy players, just NPCs. Also, the attack animations have been improved. They've done some passes to try to make things look and feel more natural, more fluid, and the game's gotten more difficult. Monster difficulty has been slightly increased starting at level 5, going upwards. It's just a more difficult experience. They've also tuned the leveling experience. Basically, you start off leveling a little quicker, and then the curve gets more difficult as you move in towards getting towards level 50. So with improvements to attack animations, with additional camera shake available for light and heavy attacks, and the addition of collision detection allowing you to bump up against enemies and really make them feel like they're substantial and they exist within this world, I think all of those things are going to improve the combat experience for people in this game. Now let's talk about PvP. Collision detection is not in PvP. Why is that the case? Well, one of the big reasons is that they had to make a decision as to whether or not they wanted to have collision detection in a game like this and everything that goes with it, or have more people on screen, have a sort of a larger, more hectic battle experience. Because frankly, there are limitations as to what's capable, not only on server side, but also on the client side. And we actually have a quote here from a Q&A on the Elitist Jerk forums in which Brian Wheeler talked about this very issue. He said that having worked on games with player collision in PvP before, they found that it was far more valuable to offer players larger battles with a better server and client performance than smaller battles with player collision, and this is all due to the hits that servers take when you implement collision detection in a PvP experience. So yes, basically what he's saying is that instead of adding collision detection for PvP, we decided to have these bigger, more frantic experiences with more people on screen and to focus on having a good experience, having a fluid experience rather than adding this feature. And I know people want this feature, and beyond, griefing concerns, it is a cool feature to have, but you have to make that choice. It's sort of one or the other, and this is the way they've decided to go with it. And I've heard a lot of people reference other MMOs that have had collision detection. In this discussion, frankly, lots of people were bringing up Warhammer Online, which I thought was a strange thing to talk about, because if you're going to reference a feature in an MMO, you probably shouldn't pick an MMO that failed and was shut down. Because obviously, now I'm not saying the game shut down because it had collision detection in PvP. I'm sure that was a great aspect to the game, but it's just funny to reference a game that basically no longer exists as a point of inspiration. So that is basically it for the recap of the big major changes that we saw to the starting experience as well as the look and feel of combat. A couple of other cool things I thought was worth mentioning. Number one, we've got the inclusion of Dark Fissures. These are smaller versions of the Dark Anchors where several Daedra will appear and they must be defeated to close the fissure. They're basically designed to be a solo experience. And you might say, well, Force, I saw you solo a Dark Anchor the other day. That might no longer be the case because Dark Anchor's difficulty has been ramped up. There will be more Daedra, they will be spawning at a faster rate, and the difficulty at the boss of the end of the Dark Anchors has been increased. So I don't know if you're going to see me soloing much more of these unless I out-level them. Also, more stuff to loot. They've increased the ability to loot objects within the environment, the crates, the barrels, all that sort of stuff. There's a lot more stuff to pick up, which traditional Elder Scrolls fans should really be happy about. And that is pretty much going to do it for this video. Once again, guys, just wanted to update you about some of the big changes that just recently went through. I was given permission to talk about these. Really excited about, honestly, all of it. I'm really excited to see what people think of the new starter experience, where you're just dumped into this more open area and you have more freedom. I'm excited to see what people think about the inclusion of collision detection. Now, without playing it yourself, how do you guys feel about any of the changes discussed here today in this video? Please let me know in the comment section below. I'd love to hear your thoughts and opinions. Thanks so much for watching, guys. If you like the content, please subscribe, keep watching, and keep owning.